I mean, like, I guess if we're talking about this increased sense of just bafflement that people have, like an increased sense of like whether it is like more statistically dangerous now than it was 20 years ago, which it is not, and it is in fact broadly safer across most categories. People feel it, and I'm not saying they're even wrong to feel this way. Like, even though it may not be like technically rational, but like, I mean, who's capable of rationality anymore? It's just like
that's not a thing.
Yeah, like I said, like the sense of bafflement and alienation that people have, that like they tend to be stoked and increased by like things that make you feel like that the fabric of society is being rended apart in front of your eyes. To turn to that phenomenon of like how people feel about reality and their ways of coping with it, I would like to turn now to the New York Times, who has remember we did the the focus group on like independent swing voters a while back.
Oh yeah.
They have a new one out now about like conservative men and like how they think and feel about American society, and there's a lot of gems in here. So let's dive into this. Like the headline is, "These 8 conservative men are making no apologies." This is by Patrick Healy and Adrian J. Rivera. They begin this little like focus group that they talk about. They set it up like this. They say, "There was no talk of a stolen election, no conspiracy theories about voter fraud or rants about President Biden's legitimacy. Yet listening to our 90-minute focus group with 8 conservative men, you couldn't help but worry for our democracy a bit." So I'm gonna call bullshit on this immediately, because if it is a focus group plumbing the brains of 8 random conservative men in America, and there's not a single one talking about a stolen election, then I'm sorry, they've cherry picked these fucking 8 guys so that they wouldn't talk about shit like that. Because I don't think this is an accurate representation
with the conservatives who get on the editorial page.
Yeah, exactly. This is like if they're not talking about the vaccine being like snake DNA to make you part satanic and remove the God gene from your body, or about how President Trump won the election, I don't think that this is an accurate representation of the current state of American conservative men and their beliefs and opinions. That being said, the New York Times writes, the men didn't see themselves fitting into American society today. They didn't feel free to be themselves in the culture. 7 of them said that they felt like a stranger in their own country. At a time when democratic institutions are under pressure and even under attack, and the United States feels so ununited, what causes these Americans to feel so alienated from American? After a recent focus groups with Democratic-leaning voters on the economy, younger women on work, relationships and gender roles, and teenagers on school and their futures, we decided to talk to conservative men about how they see themselves and what they value. Most said that they believe society is headed toward increased rule-breaking and a me culture. Crime and a sense of lawlessness came up a lot. Our focus group leader, Kristen Soltis Anderson, she had a cameo in the Della Volpe piece, saying that she was singing the praises of Della Volpe on Monday.
Oh yes, the Zoomer whisperer.
Yeah. Kristen Soltis Anderson was surprised by how much they used examples of poor road etiquette as emblematic of broader societal decay. To that end, safety was a major theme. Concern about being physically attacked, and also concern about being verbally attacked for what they say. Several felt the cost of saying what they really think is sometimes just not worth it, evoking worries among some Americans about free speech and cancel culture. And they also had strong views about masculinity and gender. They seemed aware that their views are out of step with modern culture and will offend some, but still felt their views were obviously correct. So, all right. So, let's skip ahead to the actual focus group. So, Kristen Soltis Anderson begins by asking, this is the stock and trade question of focus groups. She says, if you had to describe your biggest concern about the United States or American society in a single word or phrase, what would it be? Tony, who is white, 72, retired, and from Massachusetts, says government spending. This is a conservatism classic. Derek, who is black, 63, and a software engineer from Georgia, said inflation. Michael, who is white, 67, and retired from Florida, said economy. Christopher, Christopher, who is black, 51, and a small business loan broker from Maryland, said elitism. Danny, who is Middle Eastern, 47, and a realtor from Florida, said disgraceful. And finally, Joe. And finally, Joe, who is white, 37, and in apparel manufacturing in New York, said weak. That's the apparel manufacturing guy from New York. Thinks American society has gotten weak over the
We're
years.
freaking weak over here.
Did they interview like a bunch of like riddle giving dwarves? The last three answers, like, come on now.
Answer me these questions 3 to see what a disgrace American society be. Okay, so Kristen Soltis Anderson says, Joe, why weak? Joe responds, this is not the America I remember growing up in. Joe is my age. Like, I grew up in the exact same fucking America he did. I mean, I guess, like, in a certain sense, like, yeah, nobody, like, yes, American society is not the same as it was when we were kids, Joe. But he says,
what he means is there's the internet, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, that's what it is. It's like, it has changed our understanding of, like, public space in a way that, yeah, if you grew up before the internet, you grew up with a different understanding. And now we have this new thing. And it really does, if you're of a certain age, it does feel like there's this new, I don't know, like intimacy, but also alienation that comes from that, because you have this like socially reinscribed identity and like values that are then, publicly performed by people in a way that you just didn't experience. Like,
it's true.
Not that long ago, like 20 years ago, before social media.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, like, sometimes you get like a tree of life odor, right? Where it's like, yeah, I need to vote for Tom Tillis this time. So like my life is like my memories and my waking dreams of 40 years ago. But this is more like, I don't know what you would call this, because I think there's a lot of this voter where it's like they wouldn't be able to verbalize the problem, where it's like, oh yeah, no, we have this like unprecedented access to each other, and performance has become a part of American public life just for regular people in a way that it never has in any other society in history. And brains have been rewired in a completely unprecedented way that we do not understand, maybe will not ever understand. But I think we need like a Trey Gowdy type guy to fix that.
Yeah, it's because like those politicians, that regardless of any policy, they symbolically stand like in alienation from that. And so if it's just a sense of anything, it's just like a recognition of like, okay, yeah, this guy's kind of like me. He gets that this is weird and uncomfortable.
Well, yeah, because like the difference between how like the two parties reconcile with that is, for the Republicans, like the performance in their aspect of the performance that is American life, their performance is being like, oh, I just like live every day like it's 1983, and like eventually I can get us back there.
Yeah.
Whereas the Democrats like lean into it by like looking into the camera and breaking the fourth wall.
We're conducting a focus group with Terrence Malick's Tree of Life voters. Joe, you said American society is different. How has it changed? When I grew up, dinosaurs used to take care of each other. They used to spray kids with DDT. We loved it. What happened to that? Kids are weak nowadays because they're not running through a cloud of DDT. Just like Matt, to your point about like how the internet has changed our culture, I think it's like totally like destabilized the notion of like community, because like pre-internet, like the community you grew up in, like either you felt apart from it, or you felt like it sort of shaped your values and understanding of the world. You felt like you fit in some way. Either you fit in or you didn't. But now the internet, there's only one community, and it's like everybody is subject to the standards of like wildly diverging points of view, and like just everyone is on the hook for everyone else in a way that like pre-internet, even if you lived in like a big city, I don't think people had the same sense.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. Yeah, like I grew up in my town. Yes, there was like one sort of package of values that was broadly accepted, and I defined myself against it. I was like, I don't like this, but it was a nice, clean thing that I could do. Now there's just this cacophony, and everyone is invested, not just in like performing the way that we all do in our public interactions, but in specifically performing in relation to this thing. At that, I know that the Zoomers out there are like, what are you even talking about? But that really didn't always used to be that way. Until very recently, it wasn't.
Yeah, I barely remember what it was like, but yeah, no, it is a marked change to the point that like the frustrating thing is like you lose a little bit every year of what it was like before, to the point that like your own memories are through this filter.
Mm-hmm.
Now, like, I think that the internet is a very good example of how someone who's even 37 and 38, like, my age, can feel like their childhood that they had and like the world, the things that they took for granted or accepted as universal could be deeply destabilized. However, Joe immediately gets into another thing that's very telling here. So Kristen Soltis Anderson said, do you have a particular concern for your own community? Robert, tell me about that. Robert, who is Black, 50, and an infrastructure analyst from Texas, says crime. Kristen Soltis Anderson says, Joe, you're nodding. Joe, who keep in mind is 37 and from New York, says, I grew up with Giuliani. I'm born and raised in New York. I see stuff every day. I take the subways to work, and it's not what it used to be. It's a problem. Now, okay, I have like the exact same background and like age demographic as Joe. Like I grew up in Giuliani's New York as well. I took the subway every day. Like I'm still out on the streets. I still take the subway. And the thing is, like, the vibes have shifted. There has been a vibe shift. You can make fun of that if you want, but like people's vibes feel fucked up and weird now. But rationally, or for whatever it's worth, crime under Giuliani's New York was across the board categorically probably 3 to 4 times as high as it has been in the 21st century. Like you are in every way, shape, and form less likely to be victimized by crime in New York City now than you were under Giuliani. And like, yes, it has upticked like since the pandemic happened, but it like once, it was going down under Giuliani and was by the way, it was going down before Giuliani was in office as well.
That's true.
But it's just like, this is the perfect sense of what we were talking about here. It's like, it doesn't matter what the crime rate actually is. It's what people feel. And if people feel, or like the media that they consume, shows them only that like, mass shootings are happening on the subway. You know what? That didn't happen when I used to grow up. So I can imagine how that could make you feel like shit is getting out of hand. And like, people are losing control of like the cities and communities that they live in, even though like, rationally or whatever, like that's not the case. Or it's just like, you're safer now than you were then.
And that's why the Democrats are so fucked, because they are stuck in a corner now where all they can try to do is like use data to prove that it's not that bad relative to historic trends. And that has nothing to do with what the subjective experience of living in America feels like.
Again, like another case of like voters, or better yet, people who get excited to join a focus group, describing like something that is kind of real, right? Like the different feeling. And that different feeling, I think, it's a bunch of things. It's stuff we've already described, like the effects of technology and performance on American life, but also like the collapse of the American bargain, right?
Yeah.
That it is a bargain based on sort of comfort, ease of living, some type of like easy advancement that is now impossible with like a collapse in American prestige, American decline in profit rates. But is, again, something that like, maybe once every literally billion focus groups, you'll get some guy who may be able to describe that.
And, to Joe's point, living in New York City, the subways have absolutely gotten more fucked up over the last 5 to 10 years. Like, there is more crime on the subway. There may be less than there used to be, but crime has gone up, and just the general shittiness of subway service and like cleanliness of stations. Like it has gotten worse by every metric. And like that's a real thing you can point to about like the decline of American society. So continuing with the focus group, Danny says, nobody follows rules or laws. Stop signs are voluntary. Red lights are voluntary. Nobody gets punished for doing the wrong thing anymore. We reward mediocrity. So yeah, no one's using stop signs anymore. Well, you know what? I mean, nobody uses their signals when they change lanes on the highway either.
Nobody wants to stop anymore.
Soltis Anderson says, my next question. How free do you feel to just be yourself in society these days? I'm seeing a lot of people put zeros up. They're not putting numbers on the board when it comes to just cooling out, feeling yourself, just having fun. They got no rings.
I hate to hear that.
Robert says, you're not free to be yourself anymore because of crime. You've got to be concerned about, if I go out, am I going to be a victim of crime? It's just
That's the thing. It's like technically you always had to make that decision, and you made it in the past if you're that age under much like worse statistical conditions. But because nobody else was talking about it, maybe you didn't think about it. But now, because it's reinforced over and over again in this new digital realm that we're all like stuck in, even if we're not online, this new heightened like sense of anxiety. It feels oppressive because now you're feeling compelled to make those kind of weigh those kind of things in a way you didn't before.
And obviously, like the news media, whether it's the New York Times or the New York Post, or certainly like local TV news, has like always played up crime, and has always got ratings based on like pitching lurid tales of crime and street violence to their readership. But I think with the internet and like increased competition among like media conglomerates, this phenomenon has gotten even more like exacerbated. The belief that like whether you live in a city or not, like most people, or it just seems like a lot of people have this attitude that like American cities are like fucking Mad Max. Like if you every time you step out of your house, you were immediately like fucking like marauded by like a gang of like bald youths riding motorcycles or something.
I would hate it if LeBald accosted me while I was on the train.
Derek says, I served in the military. I came back and I'm living my life. People are going to be what they want to be, and I'm going to be what I want to be. So that's pretty normal, decent attitude to have. Michael says, I live in Orlando, and when we moved there, it was a beautiful place. Now, right down the street.
Wrong. I'm going to throw the flag on that one.
Yeah.
Orlando has never been beautiful for 1 second of its existence.
Yeah, I think we got Cap on the play.
Now, right down the street, people are stealing stuff, breaking into cars, and it's difficult to engage because you're afraid that no matter what you say, someone's going to take offense to it. Even though you may just you may just be wanting to ask a valid question and understand something. Soltis Anderson says, can you think of examples? Michael says, it's almost anything. You can't mention Trump. You can't mention Biden. Joe says, I feel that social media destroyed a lot of the culture that we had. Things used to be private, or people just said things and then they regret it after. Christopher says, I'm one of these people that speak against cancel culture. I think the true patriotism is recognizing that regardless of what party you're in, we're all Americans, and we should start from that premise. Then we find more reasons to join together rather than find silly reasons to fight against each other. Joe says, amen. See, this is how I know that these aren't real Republican voters. That they just,
I mean, maybe, but it's like, I could say, like, tens of millions of people vote. Voter participation is very bad, but I could see this representing at least like a lot of people.
Yeah.
The thing that makes me think like this does represent at least like some slice of people is that the sameness of American desires at the end of the day, which like this specifically, what this guy's asking for, when you boil it down, it is a desire that you could transplant in Bushwick or LA. It's that he wants a risk-free media career.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's the closest thing you can get. It's the only remaining, like media is the only remaining zone that many people can imagine entering, where they would be able to labor without feeling like they were being hyper exploited. It's the only possible terrain left, and it's thanks to that same social media explosion that has alienated people so much from their culture and has made people feel so performative all the time because everyone is always auditioning, whether they know it or not.
Yeah, and like definitely, this is an incredibly punitive country, and we go through cycles of like what we're punitive over. Sometimes it's you're against the Iraq War. Other times it's like during the 2 years where 2 or 3 years where like the dominant cultural strain like in media was this sort of like weird academic like idpol. It was that was what you would be punished over. But at the end of the day, everyone's desire is the same. I want to be able to attempt a media career and attempt to perform in front of everybody. That's what I really want. But I don't want there to be any drawbacks.
Yeah, Everyone wants that. That's what we want.
Honestly, yeah. I want that for everybody. I really am a free speech fundamentalist, but people only really want that for themselves. Generally.
Yeah. Now, don't want it from anybody else. They don't want to listen to anybody else doing that if they don't agree with them.
Yeah, this guy would not, for instance, want to hear a black nationalist do that. You know.
Continuing with the focus group, Solus Anderson brings in another guy named Krupal, who is Asian. Krupal. He is Asian, 22, and a medical assistant from Maryland.
He's Zoomer Republican based.
Yeah. Oh my God.
He says, I would say you're not allowed to be free anymore. Due to the internet and social media, a bunch of trolls have gotten so much power. They're constantly out there to play gotcha. So you got to be cautious. The trolls are out of control. Folks.
The trolls are at it again, folks.
They've seized control of our society.
I'm sorry. If you're a 22-year-old and you're not one of the trolls, what are you doing?
Yeah.
See, you're like, dude, if you want this power, seize it. Don't complain about it.
Don't get mad. Get even.
Exactly. I like these old guys. I get it. They're like they don't know what to do except like go to Facebook and yell at their grandkids who aren't going to pay attention. You're a digital native. You should know what to do to strike back. You should be like swatting people. Why are you complaining to a focus group?
Patrick Healy, the New York Times journalist, he interjects here, and he asks, for those of you who this has happened to, where you've expressed an opinion and you feel like people have come after you or gotten angry, where does it happen? Danny says, I've been a realtor for 22 years, and I've lived in Orlando for 44 years. I have a pretty damn good reputation. I'm throwing another flag on that play. If you've been a realtor in Orlando for 22 years, I can't imagine you have a very good reputation, at least among anyone you've ever sold the property to. He goes, about a year and a half ago, I was the president of one of the homeowners associations in our community. Okay, we're beginning to, the evidence piles up here. He goes, an Asian woman got into an argument with us. When I say us, I mean the whole board. That night, she went and wrote a review on my business page saying that I'm racist. My parents are Lebanese. I was beaten up every day when I was a kid because I'm Arabic. But I'm born in America. I'm not racist. I love cultures. I love languages.
Big culture head.
I'm a big fan of languages, personally. So he says she wrote a nasty review and Google won't take it down, even though she wasn't a client of mine. She never bought a house from me. She never did business with me, but she said that I'm a racist. That's what's happening today. And that never happened 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. And you know what's worse? You can't stop it. Robert said, I agree with what Danny's saying. People become judge, jury, and executioner. It could be at work, even at church. If you've got a different viewpoint than the other people and you're in the minority, then you could be, what do you call it, bullied? Now, I mean, this is both a phenomenon of the internet, sort of laying way, like we said earlier, about sort of dissolving notions of community. But keep in mind that the sort of the standard American conservative male point of view was the majority until, I don't know, very recently. And increasingly that's not the case. Culture does change and evolve due to a variety of different means. Whether you think that's fair or engineered in some way is sort of pointless because, an increasing number of people that they have to deal with that is now sort of considered a cultural sort of common denominator or starting point makes them feel like they're being bullied or that they fall outside of that sort of comfort zone and they feel like they're on the other end of it. And I think it's like a lot of conservative fears about racism or immigration. It's just sort of it's tied up in this idea about I hope I'm never treated like I've treated everyone else my entire life for being
exactly.
Yeah,
I have been able to bully people and dominate and be a dick. And that's cool. And I like that. The idea that I could ever be subject to that, no, thank you. I'd like to opt out.
Well, I mean, they are getting their wish of being able to do it again.
Well, I mean,
you could just do it to public school teachers now.
Yeah. And also, we talk about partisan sorting of the population. That is also now turning into literal geographic sorting. We're moving into more politically homogenous communities. So that you'll be able to just go hog wild.
Yeah, I mean,
but thanks to the internet existing, still imagine that somewhere somebody is canceling you, so you get to feel oppressed, even if even while you're just like glorying in your uniformity.
Or like not just imagine that someone out there wants to cancel you, but be exposed to like many people out there, strangers or even theoretical or real people who don't respect you, don't care to be bullied by you, or in fact are interested in bullying you. And like,
Yeah.
I think a lot of what people feel or experience as like freedom or liberty in this country, whether they feel they are free to exercise it or be themselves or not free, I think largely depends on how free they are to bully others not like them, free from social consequences.
Yeah, no, that's American freedom.
That's what feeling freedom feels like, is that you can like, you know, you can enforce a conformity of belief through like social shame and pressure on those that are different than you, without people, you know, scolding you or you having to feel bad about it.
Yeah, and the internet has democratized that sense of entitlement, but that is something that cannot be democratized because it's an incompatible thing. Like some hegemonic thing has to be asserted, and that's why we're splitting into two competing hegemonies, because you can't have one when everybody is imagines themselves to as part of their like existential freedom, the right to that unimpeded domination of those around them.
Maybe one of the like only good jobs that will exist in the future, new good jobs in America, will be that you can move to like a politically homogenous community and be the guy that people yell at.
Yeah,
like you can,
sort of like the town dunce or something.
Exactly. Like we're gonna bring back town fools, but being a town fool means like maybe you like move to the villages and you're like, oh, I think it's offensive to have Christmas. We should have Black Lives Matter Day where white people kill themselves on December 25th, and then everyone yells at you. But then on the other side, you could move to like like somewhere in the Bay Area and be like, I don't, not all men. I'm wearing a fedora. I love Infinite Jest. And you could just be like town dunce is as well paid a position as like corporate lawyer or something.
Yeah,
you make $300,000 a year.
Yeah, we need like the sin eater of the community. You put them in the stockades, people throw vegetables at them, but they're making well into six figures. So as long as you don't seriously hurt them, you can't. Yeah, that'd be a great job.
I would love to do that job
because like that'll use trolling to like societal benefit, because like if you just like plant trolls in their opposite communities, like all the social pressure can be offloaded onto them, but in a kind of like safe and consensual way.
Yeah, I would love to be the town fool of the villages or like Stone Mountain, Georgia. And like every town should have like a forum or like a mini Twitter. And I would go on and like do call out posts on people for like not giving pronouns to their dogs and shit.
Oh yay! Oh yay! Oh yay!
Yeah.
All
that
listen.
The
words of Caesar.
It'd be a fun job for me.
Patrick Healy interjects. Robert, is there something specific that you remember happening? Robert says, I voted for Trump. I like Trump from when he was with The Apprentice. I knew him as a business person. That's why I voted for him. And then, oh Lord, from church to every place, people just had a problem with it. You can't have a different viewpoint. Christopher says, I just want to harmonize with what Robert is saying. I don't even know if you guys have heard this term, but I've been called coon and Sambo in every word in the book. But when it came to Trump, everybody is so focused on the sound bites. But when I show them the executive orders that he's done for so many different cultures and people that are part of America, they don't want to hear it. They only want to stick to the sound bites. That's when I realized just how irrational so many Americans are, and I blame a huge part of that on the media. Derek says, I mean, even before the information age, talking about politics inflamed people. Even before the information age, talking about religion inflamed people. Now you've got access to all this information through all these different sources, so it's coming at you fast and furious. But for me, the same thing's been happening forever. 20 years ago, 30 years ago, you talk about politics, you get into a heated argument. Because like Derek, like that seems like a sensible point of view. I mean, like it sort of used to be like it's in mixed company. It's bad manners to bring up issues relating to politics or religion for precisely this very point.
Right. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think obviously, like it's very it's juvenile to be like the people with different political beliefs than me disagree with me, and they don't say that I'm right when I talk to them. That's fascism. I mean, you're being a baby, but as you said, it used to be understood that if you didn't want an argument, you wouldn't bring up politics. But part of that change, brought about in part by social media, is that you can't not talk about politics now, because the political spectacle has fused completely to culture. So there's no non-political subject. I mean, obviously, there never is a non-political subject, but until recently, again, there were areas that people understood to be non-political. And now, because politics can't do anything material, it has to push cultural buttons, because it cannot appeal any other way, because those functions are no longer up for democratic discussion. Everything is politicized, and so you end up having to get into these fights if you want to talk about anything. And that does seem like it'd be very wearying.
I mean, like, as we've said, like, politics is the domain of the freak, the sicko in American life, but we're all freaks and sickos now.
Yeah, we've been freakified. We've been sickified. We've all gone sicko mode. And so now every discussion ends up, even if it doesn't tip into political conflict, the knowledge that it could really does, poison relations. And it's something that I think younger people don't even recognize, because they have grown up that way.
Yeah, and whether you're on Twitter or Facebook or like any social media, and like, despite your followers or an algorithm that caters to like your point of view, nothing that you're saying is just truly among friends. It could always sort of pass through the membrane into some larger community or sphere of belief that is diametrically opposed to yours. I'll just say, though, sort of similar to Chris Rock getting slapped by Will Smith. If a joke is good enough, and if a political belief or religious belief is good enough, I think you should fucking be willing to take some shit for it.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand, if you're not wanting to engage with the broader public and it keeps coming to find you, I can understand how that could be annoying. But if you're going to share a political belief publicly, which is what the internet is, you should be able to you should just sort of have to man up and understand that some people are going to be pissed at it. Some people may abuse you for it. Some people may get wildly angry at you. But if you believe in it strongly enough, I think you should be able to weather that as sort of the price of being able to express yourself.
As Felix says, freedom is the freedom to say and do whatever you want without pushback, without feeling uncomfortable for a second of your life.
Well, I mean, it's such a broad and general thing that you can't I do not think you can make an all-encompassing statement about it, right? Because there are obviously you're going to get a million cases of someone saying that they were canceled or whatever, and it's they're a doctor and they're oh, I love when black people die of diseases, and it's okay, I don't really want to defend that one, but then in the same vein, there are cases of fucking entire Twitter and TikTok accounts that are dedicated to doxing people regardless of whether they're kids in high school or not.
Yeah.
Over jokes. And I don't think this is a thing that tens of millions of people in American life participate in. It's something that more people are a part of it than they would have been many years ago, but that's just by virtue of the freakification of American society.
Mm-hmm.
But it's too broad for me to say you should be willing to take shit. I think after many years of doing this, that my personal belief on the detested term cancel culture is that the best solution to poor faith reading of jokes or people being legitimately offended or people wanting you to be kicked off a platform is that you don't really dwell on it and you just keep doing your thing, and that seems to work the best. That is kind of impossible for a lot of people in American life because reaction and counter reaction is the only thing you can do, and also that doesn't fully account for the fucking woman on TikTok is hey, everyone call this kid's principal. What the fuck is that? Yeah. But that she is, as much as anyone else is, a victim of the freakification of American life. This is not something that people in any type of good state would be doing.
Continuing on, Solda Sanderson says, Michael, do you think that there are any things in particular you just try not to talk about today? Michael responds, one of the things that I'm sensitive to is diversity. Diversity is when you have people that truly have different ways of thinking, and that's how you solve problems. But you can't talk about it because people don't see it that way. It's all about skin colors, all about sexual orientations, all about these things that the media constantly talks about. It's not about the things that really give us value as individuals. Joe says, There's a lot of things you can't talk about. I was mentioning to someone in my office about the president appointing a Supreme Court nominee. It was an African-American woman. And I was saying that's the most racist thing you could do. What if somebody else was good? Appointing a black woman to the Supreme Court is the most racist thing you can do. I mean, I know what he's talking about. He's saying that, like Joe Biden said, like immediately off the, like, it's going to be a black woman.
Stupid.
But like, I mean,
classic Brandon.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's like there are a billion people. There are every single man, woman, and child in America is like qualified and constitutionally capable of sitting on the Supreme Court. So I don't really believe in this argument that he's like there's 20 more qualified people than this woman. Like, if he wants to take that
that's
into
an article of faith in America, though, that we live in a meritocracy and that high offices should be filled through a meritocratic process. It might not be true, but that doesn't mean that it's not something that people have like hardwired in as a belief and then get alienated from when they see it disregarded or imagine to see it disregarded.
So your joke continues, what if they were Asian? What if they were anything? And then when you speak to somebody about it, well, what are you? Racist? No, I'm not a racist. Soltis Anderson says, are there any places where you do feel comfortable at home being yourself? Joe said, during the pandemic, we decided to make a WhatsApp group. And the group grew to what it is today of like 35 guys that mostly share the same views. And we just talk to each other all day. And everybody says what's on their mind. We don't hold back. Soltis Anderson says, then let me ask the flip side of this question, which is, are there any spaces where you specifically don't feel comfortable? Any places where you are extra on guard? Joe says, I would definitely say in my office. I don't want to offend anyone. I have 4 kids. I have a living to make. I don't want to deal with any headaches. Danny says, I've had friends that I've known for 20 or 30 years drop me from Facebook over political differences. No matter how well they've known you, they will turn their back on you. Joe says, I wanted to mention one of my closest friends happens to be a liberal, and I'm the total opposite. We're great friends. People don't understand that today, that it's okay to disagree. Michael says, the country, to a great extent, has really lost the ability to have civil discourse and able to learn from different opinions. So Soltis Anderson says, another show of hands questions. How many of you agree with this statement? I feel like a stranger in my own country. All but Derek raised their hands. Danny says, we are the most selfish, self-centered, entitled culture. Everything
correct. You too, though,
yes.
motherfucker. You are not excused from that circle.
My brother's a doctor in the emergency room. I hear stories every single night. People just run red lights. And when we were younger, we used to see only one person run a light. Now it's 4 or 5 cars in a row on the same light. They could literally kill a family. They don't care. They're in a hurry. They've got to get to Chick-fil-A. Soltis Anderson says,
when he runs a red light, it's because he had to. You don't understand. This is why This is why, at the end of the day, everyone will like sign on for a military coup that kills all of their enemies, is because everyone is being incentivized to be the most selfish, awful version of themselves. Like, that is a universal thing. But of course, for every individual who is being pushed in that direction, because they've lived their life, they have a narrative that justifies it. But everybody else is just some asshole.
See, I would have been deeply skeptical of this idea that everyone is just running red lights and like disobeying traffic laws, had we not spent a couple hours driving from Dallas to Houston on this past tour. Because some of the driving we saw there that really was a new level. Like, when we were like, traffic slowed down, and by slowed down, it was like moving at about 40 miles an hour. We immediately saw 2 cars just off-road it onto the access road.
Yeah, like, and it was not like real close. There was a fucking like a hill, a grassy hill, and a significant decline to this access road that was like 30 yards away, and these cars just immediately peel off and
just
go
whipped
right
out of
over
there,
it.
off-roaded it immediately. Continuing with this, Soltis Anderson says, let me shift gears and focus a little bit on the things that you value. What are you most proud of these days? What has made you feel a sense of accomplishment? Derek says, I made sure my son graduated from college, was there to support him all the way, do what I had to do to make sure he became a man. Joe says, my children, we take bagels or donuts or whatnot to the local police station nearby because their morale is probably not the greatest, especially in the NYPD.
Oh my goodness.
And we always tell them, we love you guys. We support you guys. And I always tell my kids, in anything that anybody does, there's always a small amount of bad people that do the wrong things. I suppose that includes the NYPD. But always remember that it doesn't always set the tone for everything, that the police are here to protect us.
It's the most selfish, self-centered scumbag time in America, except for police, who are immune for that.
I like the idea of like like the Democrats need to like listen to this focus group particularly to see where Americans are at. Like I love like the idea of like trying to take anything from this fucking nonsense, this like how Pikmin talk, where it's like okay, we listen to the focus group. In response, we are going to make a WhatsApp group for everyone in the country where they can like say the election was stolen or like say like it's racist to like be on the Supreme Court and like no one can get mad at them. We're going to kill half the people that run red lights, but the other who like had to get a burger under special circumstances, they were
that was an emergency
we have to give
burger.
them we have to give them love and understanding. Paid time off for you and your son to give sort of the hardest bagels ever to some police officers, and then we're gonna have it so that there's no more trolling. We've listened to you.
No more. Yeah, don't be mean.
I like the idea of the Democrats reading this focus group, and they're like, "Oh man, we're really in a bind with this defund the police, Black Lives Matter thing." Okay, how about this? Like, federal tax rebates for whatever local police departments spend on bagels, donuts, for just something to nosh on during the day.
Yeah. Every police department, they're going to be able to continue like clocking overtime in their sleep, like the Twitch streamers who just stream themselves from the bed. But also they'll have like a weekly donut and bagel day where they get special like community visit overtime.
All right, so Patrick Healy sort of shifts directions, and he says, "I want to ask each of you to throw out a word or two on this. What does it mean to be a man?" Robert says, "Provide for your family." Michael says, "Compassion." Tony says, "Being responsible and being a model for your kids." Joe says, "I think providing for your family, teaching your children right from wrong, leading by example." Derek says, "Having integrity." Krupal says, "Taking care of your family and being respectful to others regardless of your personal perspective." Robert says, "From my religion standpoint, the man is in charge. The responsibility falls upon a man in certain areas. And if something fails, it's the man's responsibility on why it failed, not the woman's." Patrick, I totally disagree with Robert. When things go wrong, it's always women's fault.
True.
Man, you cannot blame us for this. It's these women these days. Yeah. Don't ever get mad at a man. That's what matters to me about men.
Yeah, let's make that our politics. No, getting illegal to get mad at men.
Healy asks, "Is masculinity important to you?" Christopher says, "Yes. You can't observe the natural animal kingdom and see the separation between masculine and feminine, and then all of a sudden think that we as humans are just going to be all one-noted. We're masculine and feminine for a reason." Yeah, I mean, like when I look at hyena society, I think yes, we should be dominated by a strong matriarchal figure with a 6-inch clitoris. Derek, what about you? Derek says, "Very chill masculinity, not that bravado type of crap." See, Derek's talking some sense in this focus group. Robert says, "To me, the stuff that's going on with Ukraine, the United States hasn't filled our role as being masculine as a nation in that aspect. And that's why Putin is doing what he's doing. Because when you don't step up into certain roles, then the stronger person is going to take over. In past times, we've taken a leadership role. And to me, we're not taking a leadership role. So, Putin..."
This is just yeah, like this is when you get older and your dick stops working and you blame it on television or something. It's like, I'm sorry, man, the blood flow to that member is no longer operating. You just have to accept it.
And also, when you've aged out of selective service or being able to volunteer for the military, then it becomes incumbent upon the masculinity of the nation to go to war.
Yeah.
With Russia, because you're like, well, I'm 56. I'm retired. I'm a retired realtor. Okay, here's a really good one. Soltis Anderson says, "Who would you all think of as good examples of masculinity or manliness these days? Who's a good example?" Okay, and Danny, I gotta say, Danny is my new hero for this answer. Jason Statham.
Hell yeah.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
All right.
Listen, you can't.
Listen up, you can't.
Listen up, you cunts. We used to know the boys from the boys from the gal, boys from the birds. Now, what? They're chopping their todgers off nowadays.
I have three rules. I never look at what I'm transporting. If I do find out that it's a black woman being put on the Supreme Court, I just abandon the car on the side of the road. And I have a WhatsApp group with 35 guys.
35 exactly bald men.
Who are also transporters.
We talk about whatever we want to talk about. Bub's your uncle. Christopher says Denzel Washington. Robert says, yeah, Denzel Washington. Yeah. Tony says Tom Brady. I love it's like, this is like traditional. It's supposedly like, these are conservative men, conservative values. And when asked, who is your role model for masculinity? Like 3 of them say movie stars.
Yeah. Very, very telling.
And then Tom Brady, like, a professional athlete.
Yeah, just entertainment figures. People on the TV.
Healy says, do you think the definition of masculinity or manliness has changed over your lifetime? Tony says, this country has become more feminized. It's not the way it was when I was growing up. We started off talking about how the country has a weak image. They don't call women the weaker sex for no reason. Men are necessary to maintain a vibrant society, and we've been feminized. No offense. Soltis Anderson says, who, if anyone, do you think views masculinity as a negative these days? Christopher says, I support feminism, but I don't support modern feminism. I think that modern feminism is focused on so-called toxic masculinity, and they are actually purveyors of men bashing. And so I support femininity and feminism, but not to the point where they're trying to hoist themselves above men or trying to make up for the so-called patriarchy. Christopher, spit, church, take them to church. No, I mean, like, I'm all for feminism too, but not if these broads think they're better than men.
Yeah, or even as good, honestly.
No. Like, if you look at the animal kingdom, there are natural and complementary gender roles between like the better, stronger gender and then sort of like the support gender, who's there to support the cooler, stronger, vibrant sex, which is men, of course.
Yeah, of course.
And I'm all for ladies' rights, but like, come on, don't rock the boat or get mad at me for any reason.
There are some interesting gender setups in the animal kingdom. Sables, they actually, the female sable will entice the male sable to fuck her and nut in her and then bring her rat carcasses and shit until she gives birth. And then when the sable pups can finally open their eyes, she tries to kill him and kicks him out. It sounds pretty good.
Wait, Felix, did that used to happen though? 30, 40, 50 years ago? Really? Do you think?
Actually, no. Yeah, no. Since feminism, since the feminization of the culture, sables used to live together forever, and now this has happened.
There's a lot of single parent sable families out there, and it's
all these sable bitches trying to tell me what can and can't be in video games. Putting rat carcasses behind my dresser.
So here's some other opinions about masculinity and sort of the feminization of society. Danny says, look at fashion. Look at the newer generation of how people dress, how men dress. There's men and there's women, and there's masculinity and femininity, and there's no reason to destroy one in order to make the other one better. I'm not trying to get into a negative men versus women thing, but I'm seeing masculinity under attack, and I'm seeing men wearing tight, skinny jeans with no socks and velvet shoes. And it's cool to wear pink. I don't mind wearing pink. It's a cool color. And I'm not saying colors belong with a certain gender. It's so funny. This is what we were talking about earlier. Every time you speak, you don't feel comfortable enough to say what's on your mind, where you have to almost give a disclaimer. I have no problem with pink. But when we go out to a club or a dinner or dancing, you see some of the younger generation wearing very feminine clothes, blatantly feminine clothes. So much so that we were almost trying to portray masculinity as negative. But okay, so that was Danny.
I like how he almost defeated himself in an argument. He's just for no reason. Just the starving wretch that is his inner monologue was what about pink? And he was like, no, I think pink's awesome. See, this is what I mean. You can't even say anything. And no one said anything.
That's the thing. It's
the first time he's heard one of his own thoughts in 3 years. And he's like, oh, what the fuck?
Yeah, all this oppression is largely in their heads as they're confronting feelings that they don't know how to process and then just getting mad at them.
Yeah. I have to say, the skinny jean thing, I don't really know what he's talking about. I thought he was going to talk about how Harry Styles will wear a dress, and people are like, look at him beating up gender roles, and it's gender roles have never been stronger. Gender roles are challenging him right back. He looks terrible in that.
It's funny, when it comes to sort of sort of cultural reactionary frustrations with contemporary society and particularly masculinity. I feel like as long as I've been alive, it's always been focused on pants. And when I was a kid, it was they were too baggy and falling off your ass. And now they're too tight. Now they're too tight. Yeah.
Yeah,
and now they're tight. It's like, what do you want?
We need a nice, like, sort of relaxed fit Dockers. You know, just sort of straight leg, not you know, like not no boot cut, and no like no tapering on the legs. You know, that's
okay. This is a cool idea for men. You know how like women have we're the daughters of the witches you couldn't burn. How about like we're the sons of the men who you told to pull up their pants? Well, you said like our pants were too baggy, they were sagging, and now when the wolves come knocking at the door, look who's come crying back for help. I'm gonna look down at all the 37-year-old garment manufacturers and system admins begging society to wear looser pants, and I'm gonna say no.
Michael says, kind of makes me think of the old peace through strength thing. Masculinity is kind of like that, where you need to be confident, willing, and committed, but not necessarily aggressive. But there's a place for it, and it needs to be there. Krupal says, I work in healthcare. I'm lucky to have a good environment. But a lot of my other friends who work in healthcare, they've been told a lot of times to tone it down and not show their manliness. If it's tattoos or if it's long hair or a beard, anything that is leaning towards masculinity, they're told to tone it down.
Long hair?
Yeah. Long hair and beards used to be associated with. Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Tell the fucking hard hat rioters that long hair is symbol of masculinity.
This is I have not heard anyone put together a coherent thought on this. They're just like they are like them trying to construct like a sentence that tries to convey one opinion or one sentiment is like that they're seesawing against themselves and falling off every time.
I've noticed that the answers have become more confused and contradictory when they've waded into the question of like masculinity and what it means to be a man. Guys today, we're in a drift. Soltis Anderson says, show of hands, how many of you would say that men have it harder these days than 2 or 3 decades ago? Joe says, what comes to mind is Governor Cuomo of New York, who I hate. I couldn't stand him. I was so happy when he was gone. But maybe he was really trying to have a relationship with one of these women. I just feel like I feel like the people just rush to judgment on things. But that goes back to the cancel culture idea, where they just look to go after people. There's a mob, and then once they go after you, that's it. You work in the workplace, you have to watch what you do. You want to pat someone on the back? Oh, whoa, that might be, you better be careful. I just love he's like, I hate Governor Cuomo. I'm so glad that he's gone. But like, honestly, like I support all the sexual harassment he did. I mean, I thought it was very unfair what happened to him. Yeah, maybe, he's a romantic guy, and you can't ask someone their bra size in the office anymore. You can't ask about their sex life, or it becomes a big thing. Krupal says, it's like you're a woman, you're given a trophy. If a guy does something, it's not a big deal. If girls do the same thing, it's like, you go, girl power. I think her gender plays a bigger role, and it gives her more advantage these days, be it career or anything. Christopher says, I think that women have it a lot easier than men these days. What it feels like is that society is trying to make up for the times when women were oppressed, and it seems like it's kind of gone overboard. And then Soltis Anderson says, do you think our society values you, the things you contribute, the things you stand for? Do you think society values you? Derek says, well, I think companies like Nike value me. What? What?
What the fuck?
My
God. I guess Nike is the only company that hasn't done like just a girls only trophy ceremony just for the ladies.
Christopher says, I don't think institutions or society values me. America seems to be focused on sensationalism and celebrity worship, things that aren't really of any inherent value. My thing is, I have to create the value in myself. I have to live my life with that value, and I have to instill that sense of value in my kids, my family. A show of hands question. Do you think that sexism is a major problem in America today? Nobody raises a hand. And do you think that racism is a major problem in America today? Nobody raises a hand.
Thumbs up.
So just some closing thoughts here. Christopher says, You have individual racism, just like you have individual sexism. You may have pockets or communities of that are known for it. Certainly, people that may be in office that may be purveyors of it, but it doesn't make the whole system that way. And I think what happens is people try to make it become systematic. And I understand it. Don't get me wrong. I can't say that 50, 60 years ago that it wasn't systematic, because it was. But you can't take that and then just refuse to look at all of the changes that were made and say, "Oh yeah, we're still there," because we're not.
I mean, that's getting at a real like a genuine crisis that's buried within like the attempt to, you know, create racial justice in this country and all that, which is that, yes, there was like a regime of de jure racism in America that was dismantled, and with it was supposed to be the empowerment of African Americans to, you know, finally be able to claim like political influence in relationship to their share of the population. And at the exact same time that like those barriers fell, the U.S. economy was radically restructured in such a way that upward mobility was canceled. You either were lucky enough to have gotten into the homeowning class, and then you get to huddle on that equity, you know, as your kids and their kids slowly lose purchasing power and wealth, or you don't, in which case a decline is inevitable. And that is what the legacy of the systemic racism is this reinforcing of a economic distinction. But we can't talk about economics, and we can't tie race to economics in any coherent way, because we have completely we don't have any political faction with the ability to, you know, actually pass bills that represents that analysis. So you have this thing of you're telling everyone like, no, the racism is still a problem. Racism is systemic, but people who've been brought up on the story of the civil rights movement think, no, we did that. We fixed that. And you can't explain how it didn't actually fix anything without getting into questions of political economy that are just not part of the political discussion.
Okay, I hear you. But how about this? How about if you do like a sort of dunk and egg type situation where one of these 43-year-old men is he's a hedge knight. He's traveling America, like seeking to uncancel men, get them in WhatsApp groups, solve problems, you fight his own internal monologue, figure out if it's okay to wear pink, and then the egg, like the young squire who's secretly noble born and will one day be king and is also taking part of this journey to learn of the common man, is actually Baron Trump. I think everyone would learn a lot.
The focus group closes out by Celtis Anderson asking, what would surprise people the most about what it's like to be in your shoes these days? What do you think many people don't quite understand? And I'm just going to paraphrase here. Basically, all of them say some variation about how hard they work. And I got to say, with the lone exception of Krupal, the 22-year-old healthcare worker, I don't believe it.
No, yeah, no,
I really don't believe it.
These men went delirious being deprived from burger for 45 minutes.
Yeah. If you're a realtor in Orlando, like, I mean, come on, like, you just spare me the rap about fucking hard work and fucking shit like that, because yeah,
I would love to like just randomly make one of these guys the president.
That would be awesome.
Like, why not
make Jason Statham the VP?
Yeah.
Yes. Oh man, a Denzel Jason Statham presidential ticket. Can you imagine how cool that would be?
You know what this reminded me of? This reminded me of when we were in DC for the Trump inauguration. And I thought about this guy that I met like outside the shitty hotel we were staying at, where he was like, he was a like big Trump guy. And he was like, I voted for Trump because it was a once in a lifetime opportunity to vote for a businessman. But also I'm from Arkansas and I love Bill Clinton. He's a great guy. I'm actually friends with him. And it's, man, that is typical American. They should have put that guy in the focus group. He was at least like more interesting than these guys. I could not figure out what the fuck his deal was. Very friendly though.
There you go. I mean, like when you dig deep beneath the surface, basically all Americans are just the same kind of ignorant pigs, myself included.
It's true.
So,
Yeah, absolutely.
We're selfish,
we're hogs,
self-centered, ignorant pigs.
and all we could do is blame